The floor was icy beneath me. My ears buzzed, and I could feel warm blood trickling down past my jaw, pooling on the kitchen tiles. My mother stood still by the sink. My brother, breathing heavily, still gripped the picture frame he had just shattered against my head. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom broke the silence. "He didn't mean it," she whispered, eyes shifting quickly toward the door. "We're not calling anyone. You know how much he has to lose." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Everything spun around me, except for the one part of me that had suddenly, unmistakably woken up. This wasn't a family. It was a crime scene held together by shared DNA. They didn't take me to the emergency room. I went alone, pressing a towel to my head as I sat in the waiting room. A woman handed me paperwork. I don't even remember signing it. When the doctor came in, she was quiet at first. She cleaned the wound carefully, parting my blood-soaked hair with gentle hands. Then she looked at me, steady, unflinching. No pity. Just a calm, burning kind of resolve. "We're not covering for him this time." Before I could respond, she turned and picked up the phone. She called the police. "My name is Clara. And if you think this story ends in forgiveness or a warm family reunion, keep watching. Because what happens when the people meant to protect you weaponize silence? When blood becomes a form of currency, and you're done paying the price." That night, they arrested him at the house. My mother called me 17 times. Left voicemails that swung wildly between pleading and blaming. I didn't pick up. Because that voice on the other end? That wasn't my mother anymore. That was someone who made a choice, a future for one child and a cover-up for the other. I stood by the hospital window in a borrowed hoodie, watching the red and blue lights reflect off the glass. And for the first time in my life, I felt seen. They let me stay overnight. Observation, they called it. But I think the nurse just didn't want me going back home. I didn't sleep. I watched the second hand circle the clock, 3 full times before sunrise. At 6:03 a.m., my mother texted. "This could have ruined his entire career. I hope you're happy." I stared at the screen like it might bite me. Then I powered off the phone. I wasn't going to justify my pain to someone who saw it as an inconvenience. Later that morning, the social worker arrived. Her voice was soft but strong. "You don't have to defend them. We've seen this before." I wanted to scream. Then why didn't anyone stop it? But I just said, "I'm not going back." She nodded, like she already knew, then handed me a packet. Shelter addresses, legal resources, emergency contacts. I wasn't a child, but I was still in danger. That afternoon, the story broke. Small article, local paper, subdued headline. College senior arrested on domestic assault charges involving sibling. They didn't use names, but people figured it out. By evening, it was all over Facebook. A cousin messaged me. What happened? I didn't answer, because for years they saw him throw things. Saw me flinch when he entered a room. And no one, not once, said a word. But now, suddenly, everyone wanted the full story. Where were they when I wore long sleeves in June? Where were they when I fell down the stairs 3 times in 1 year? That night, Mom left one last voicemail. "He's your brother. Families forgive." I stared at the ceiling, my head still aching, and whispered, "Families protect." And you didn't. 2 days later, the detective called. "Clara, we've officially filed the charge. You're safe." But then he added, "Your mother posted his bail." Of course she did. She didn't check if I was okay. She didn't ask if I could walk without pain. She brought him home. As if the glass embedded in my scalp never existed. As if his future was the only one that mattered. I moved into a temporary safe house, a converted shelter. There was warm tea, shared rooms, and stories too heavy for daytime television. One girl told me her father used to lock the fridge. Another hadn't been hugged in 5 years. We were nothing alike, and somehow exactly the same. My court advocate offered to help file a no-contact order. I said yes immediately. Then she paused. There's something else. My brother's attorney had submitted a character defense. My mother had provided a letter. She called me emotional, said I had a history of exaggerating, said her son was a model student under stress, not a danger. She ended it with, "We're a good family. This was just a misunderstanding." I stared at that word, we, like it was venom. We were never anything. That night, I sat down with a blank form. Victim's statement. 3 pages. I didn't hold back. I wrote about the bruises, yes, but I also wrote about the birthdays he ruined. The shattered plates. The way Mom would always look away when I cried. I ended with one sentence. If you let him walk, you're teaching him that hurting women has no cost, and that mothers can co-sign it with silence. I signed it. Clara Brennan. Then I underlined it twice. If they were going to pretend I was invisible, I'd make sure my name was the last thing they read. The courtroom smelled like old paper and disinfectant. My hands were cold. My ribs still hurt when I took a deep breath. But I wore my father's watch and a navy blazer lent to me by Elise, a worker from the shelter. She hugged me before I stepped in. "You're not here to beg," she said. "You're here to be heard." My brother sat across the aisle, clean-shaven, tailored suit, gaze rehearsed. Beside him, my mother. Hair done. Makeup perfect. Pearls around her neck like it was Sunday service. She never once looked in my direction. But when the judge asked if I was ready to speak, I saw her flinch. I stood slowly. My legs trembled beneath me, but my voice, though quiet, cut through the silence. "I am," I said. Then I read every word. The bruises, the concussions, the things they said afterward. I spoke about how, in our home, silence was safer than the truth. I told them how my mother taught me to hide, and how my brother learned that power never needed to say sorry. When I reached the final line, asterisk, if you let him walk, I promise you, I won't be the last girl he hurts, asterisk, the room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. The prosecutor gave a solemn nod. The judge asked no questions. He simply said, "We'll reconvene in 2 days for ruling." Outside, reporters waited. I didn't stop for interviews, but one called out, "Clara, any regrets?" I turned for just a moment. "No," I said. I finally told the truth. Let them figure out what to do with it. Back at the shelter, the women clapped as I walked through the door. One of them grinned and said, "You were ice up there, chilling." I smiled in return, but deep down, what I felt wasn't pride. It wasn't vengeance either. It was stillness, the kind that only comes after years of holding your breath. Because now I knew something that couldn't be taken from me. Even if the judge hadn't believed me, I did. And that would be enough to keep me from ever going silent again. 2 days later, the verdict came in. I didn't sit in the courtroom this time. I stood. I wanted to feel the weight of it. The judge didn't draw it out. Guilty. 1 count of aggravated assault. No probation. 90 days in county custody. Mandatory anger management. A 2-year no-contact order. My brother's attorney objected. My mother burst into tears. But not for me. Never for me. She chased after the bailiff like it was her own sentencing, clinging to her son as though she were the one being taken away. And me. I just exhaled, one breath, the deepest I'd taken in years. As I stepped outside the courthouse, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hi. You don't know me. I was your brother's ex. I just wanted to say thank you. What you did saved someone else, too. I didn't reply, but I saved the message. Later that night, as I packed up my belongings at the shelter, Elise walked in. There's something you should know, she said gently. Let me guess, I sighed. My mom. She nodded. She left a voicemail for the shelter director. Said you exaggerated. Claimed emotional instability. She's trying to discredit your statement after the fact. I let out a bitter laugh. Soft. Exhausted. She's still protecting him. She is, Elise said. But what she doesn't realize is, this isn't just a courtroom anymore. She handed me a file. Inside, an offer letter. A nonprofit focused on women's legal advocacy had seen my case. They wanted to bring me on board, to speak, to write, to help others reclaim their voices. You up for it? She asked. I looked at my bandaged hand, then at the door. I was made for it. Because here's the truth. My mother once told me that silence was strength, but I've learned something else. Silence isn't strength. Voice is. And mine. It was just getting started. My first speech was at a local community college. A small stage, 30 metal chairs, 2 microphones, one of them crackling. I still wore that same navy blazer, still traced the edge of the watch on my wrist, like my dad's hands were guiding mine from somewhere unseen. I looked out at the crowd. Young women with open notebooks. Mothers seated quietly in the back. One boy in the crowd, a hoodie pulled low over his forehead, kept his eyes locked on me, like he was learning, maybe for the first time, what pain really looked like. I began. Sometimes, your own home becomes a crime scene. And sometimes, the people who built it hand you silence like a weapon. I told them everything. The wall. The blood. The cover-up. But I didn't end with revenge. I ended with strength. I am not the girl they raised me to be, I said. I am the woman I became in spite of them. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Some people cried. One girl hugged me so tightly, I felt her ribs shaking. But what I didn't expect was the headline the next morning. Mother of convicted abuser responds to daughter's speech. There she was. A glossy op-ed. Photos taken on her front porch. Her quote, "She's fabricating to stay relevant. We're the ones truly suffering." But this time, my hands didn't shake. I'd known it was coming. By noon, the tide had turned. You left her bleeding. You bailed out an abuser. If silence is strength, why are you the only one still talking? Mom deleted the post. Her salon's Yelp page was flooded with 1-star reviews. And me. I didn't post a thing. I didn't tweet. I didn't clap back. Instead, I went to the next school. And the next. Because legacy isn't built on outrage. It's built on evidence. And my voice had become undeniable. I wasn't famous. I was free. And I had learned that sometimes the best kind of justice is living loudly in a world that begged you to keep quiet. Then, one Tuesday, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in a soft slant. I almost didn't open it, but something about the quiet weight of it stopped me. Inside was a single page, torn at the edges, like the writer had second-guessed every word. The handwriting was familiar. I watched the video, the one from the campus talk. You stood straighter than I've ever seen you. You didn't stutter once. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I finally see it. What we did, what we let happen, and what you carried alone. No signature. But I knew. It was my sister. She hadn't spoken to me since the arrest. vanished into the same silence our mother always taught us to preserve. Keep it pretty. Keep it polite. Keep it buried. But that letter, it cracked something. Not forgiveness, just space. That same night, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror of my small apartment. No bruises, no bandages, just me, untouched, unbroken. I opened a drawer and pulled out the old court transcript. My statement, printed, highlighted, neatly filed. I slid it into an envelope and wrote a single word on the front. Remember. No return address. Just her name. Because some stories aren't told for sympathy. They're sent as reminders. And sometimes, even a woman who spent her life silencing others needs to be haunted by the voice she tried to erase. A week later, the non-profit called again. They offered me a speaking series, 8 cities over 3 months, fully paid. Before leaving, I stood at my kitchen window. Sunlight spilled across the table, and for the first time, I said it out loud. I'm proud of her. Not the girl who kept quiet, but the woman who walked through fire and came out louder. 3 months later, I stood on a stage in New York City. The lights were warm. The room was full. Every seat taken by someone who had once been called dramatic, when all they were was bleeding. This time, I spoke slower. Not out of fear, but because I finally understood the weight of my words. I used to think silence made me strong, that if I didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't break, I'd survive. But silence didn't save me. Truth did. Afterward, a woman approached me, older, weathered lines running like rivers down her cheeks. She didn't speak, just handed me a folded photo. Inside was a picture of her daughter, smiling. Gone too soon. She mouthed the words, "Thank you for speaking when we couldn't." I nodded. No hug. Just hands pressed together in quiet understanding. Later that night, I returned to my hotel and checked my phone for the first time in hours. One voicemail. From the shelter. Elise. Clara, your mom stopped by. She didn't ask to see you. Just left a small box. Said you'd know what to do with it. I returned 2 weeks later. Inside the box, my baby blanket, a photo of me at 5, and a handwritten note. I can't undo what I allowed, but I can carry it now. I hope someday that matters. It didn't erase the past. It didn't fix anything. But for the first time, I didn't feel invisible to the woman who gave me life. I sat on the porch of the shelter and watched a young girl run across the grass, backpack too big for her small frame. And I thought, we are not our families. We are the chapters we write after the fire. That night, I opened a fresh journal. Page 1. I wrote, she was never weak. She was waiting to be heard. The next morning, I mailed the manuscript to a publisher. A memoir titled, The Loudest Room in the House. My name below it. Clara Brennan. And this time, there was no silence left to bury.